Hi, friend. If I asked you, who do you think of when you think of a strong woman? Who comes to mind? Oh, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to know a little bit more about that strong woman. I know for myself, it's my grandmas. Both of them come to mind. They lived through just great trials. Like my dad's mom, her mother died giving birth to her. She was the youngest of 13 children, basically raised by her brothers and sisters. Her father really just was mean to her, never really forgave her for her own mother passing away. And she vowed to be the mom that she never had, and she was. I mean, she really was to our family. She was an amazing grandma, but she was a mother to hundreds as she did social work. And then my mom's mom, her husband passed away and related to World War II at a very young age, and left behind 3 young children. And so my mom's mom worked 3 jobs just trying to put food on the table and clothe their children. The remarkable thing about this grandma is I never saw her be bitter. I mean, both grandmas really, for the trials they went through, did not have a bitter bone in their bodies. And I love that about them. I just admire them so much. Both of them, I would tell Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be like you. So strong women. And friends, that's what we are studying this semester. We are looking at the lives of 2 very, very strong women, Ruth and Esther. Like out of the 66 books of the Bible, there are only 2 named after women, Ruth and Esther. So there's got to be something special here. And I promise you, there is something special indeed. These were strong women, courageous women, devoted women, and most of all, I think women of faith. But more than true stories about real women and the real trials that they face, these are stories about God's work. Like we know, where's my Bible? Here's my Bible. Like we know this book isn't just about people, although we hear stories of people. This book is written that we might know God and enjoy Him. So these are stories intended to teach us a little bit more about how God works and about how He thinks and how He behaves. And I would say how He works behind the scenes. I'm going to tell you, in these stories, we're going to ask, where are you, God? Where are you? And where are you in the midst of suffering? Where are you in the midst of trials? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how God just works behind the scenes, and we don't always see Him. Like I feel like this is so applicable to where we are today. There is much suffering in the world. We are all going through trials. I don't think I know a single woman who is not overwhelmed by some kind of a trial right now or difficult life circumstance. And we could all ask, where are you, God? Where are you in the midst of suffering? And we're going to see that God, He's not vamoosed. He's not on vacation, but He is very much sovereign and working behind the scenes. So these are 2 Old Testament stories, meaning Old Testament narrative, that are going to tell us and teach us a little bit more about who God is, and a little bit more about who we are, and how is it we're called to live in the midst of this fallen world, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of trials. So looking forward to unpacking this with you. Now, I've just mentioned that these are stories, but these are stories about real people and real places, okay? As I mentioned that word story, I want us to take a minute to just just think about what is it that makes for a good story? Because I guarantee you, these are two really good stories. The authors, the narrators of these stories, I think are brilliant in their storytelling. So what makes for a good story? I've talked about this in the past a little bit when we were studying Genesis. Number one, there are characters, right? Number two, these characters are on a journey, and this journey has a plot. It has a series of events, which number three involves conflict, problems, trial, things that need to be overcome. Like every good story has conflict. Think of all the Disney stories that we love and adore, whether it's Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, they all run into some kind of conflict, and we see them work through this conflict and transformed through the conflict and brought to the other side. So that makes for a good story, and God often uses this genre to teach us as well. Why? Because they're fun. They're interesting. Think of Jesus and his teachings. He often used parables. He often used stories because they're interesting. They capture our attention, and we learn from the characters. We learn from their experiences. We identify with their experiences, and hopefully we will be inspired, and we will glean, and we will find hope as we watch the transformation of these characters and see how God works through the trials to provide for them and to provide for his people. We definitely will see God's steadfast love, his faithfulness, his mercy. He is ever working behind the scenes, and he's leading and guiding and directing, and I can't wait to, I don't know that we'll plumb the depths of this, but we will definitely unpack this idea some. So friends, before we get going, like the next time I hop on video, I'm going to be talking, it's going to be a daily video. I'm going to be talking about the first lesson in this book of Ruth. But before we do, I want us to understand maybe just 3 key rules of studying an Old Testament story or Old Testament narrative. I've talked about these in the past, so this might be a little bit of a refresher course for some of you. But when we're looking at Old Testament stories, and I think this is going to help us with the study of Ruth and then the study of Esther, we want to understand, number one, God is always the hero. And friends, trust me, this will help us stay grounded in the book of Ruth, and then especially grounded in the book of Esther, where we don't hear his name mentioned once. All right, it's a little bit of a challenge. Number 2, we want to read these stories literally. I just said it. These are real people living in real times in history, living in real places that we could go visit today, or if we could go back in time, we could go visit these people, places, and understand the context of the world that they were living in. So God is always the hero. Number 2, read literally. Number 3, we look for the spiritual lesson, and they abound in these stories. We can learn from these characters, whether they're good or bad. There are spiritual lessons for us to take away. Now, for the study of Ruth, I just want to offer up these I'm going to call them pro tips, okay? I want us to kind of live by these 3 rules as we journey through Ruth. But a couple of just pro tips is, number 1, focus on dialogue. Focus on dialogue. It's within the dialogue that we learn about the Lord, especially in the book of Ruth. All right, dialogue almost always points out some truths about who God is, or it at least will explain the situation that we're looking at. These are really, really good places to slow down, make some observations, take notice. All right. And then secondly, notice names, especially in this book of Ruth. Notice names. Names often capture the significance of the narrative. The name can also become an aid for just remembering the story and remembering the event. All right. Okay, what else do I want to mention? Oh, just a little bit of context for the book of Ruth. Okay, we begin with this book of Ruth. This is the story of Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz, and it takes place in the period of the Judges. All right, so the Judges, this is, in the first 5 books of the Bible, we have the Pentateuch. We see God creating the world. We see God calling Abraham. And then we end up seeing how the nation of Israel is birthed, right? And we see Moses leading Israel out of Egypt, out of slavery, into the promised land. And we kind of, in those first 5 books of the Bible, we go on a journey with God's people, the Israelites. And so the book of Judges is an interesting book that takes place after the death of Moses. And then the leader who takes over for Moses is Joshua, and he's the one who actually gets the people into the promised land. But then Joshua dies, and then comes the book of Judges. We just see this terrible cycle of God's people following after the Lord, but then turning away, and then some leader coming on, a judge, and the people's, their hearts might turn back to the Lord, but then once again, everything there's this crazy cycle of following the Lord and then not following the Lord, such that the end of Judges, what does it say? At the end of Judges, the very last verse, Judges 21:25 says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." Not good times. And some of us could maybe relate to that statement. I think we could all relate to that statement for the times that we live in. Maybe everyone is an exaggeration, but an awful lot of people, we're doing what seems right in our own eyes. Throughout the Pentateuch, God makes clear that we have a choice. His people have a choice. He says to the Israelites, look, I have set before you life and I have set before you death. Now choose life. And every day we have choices to make where we're either choosing life or death. We do. We choose life-giving thoughts. We choose is death-giving thoughts the right way to say it? I'm just going to say we choose whether or not we're going to choose those life-giving thoughts, words, and deeds, or we're going to choose death, right? There's one or two paths. There's like the first path and the second path. There's really no in between. We choose one or the others. And so Ruth is, I think, this story where we see one family in the midst of this time of Judges where everyone is doing what is right in their own eyes. We see a story about a family who they are choosing to follow the Lord. They are just seeking life. They are seeking to follow God's command and what life looks like, choosing life. And the purpose is that a king will be born. And all of this is going to point to the King Jesus being born. It's an amazing story. We will unpack that some more. All right. So friends, the Ruth story, her faithfulness, her devotion, her loyalty, her generosity, her obedience, these are all worthy to be told. And I'm so excited to unpack this with you. This is my new favorite story of the Bible. There is no doubt about it. This is a redemption story, a coming home story, a love story. This is a rags to riches story. It's the best of stories. I think we see God in all of his glory, and look forward to studying it with you. I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. I want to welcome you here. You caused me to dig deeper, and I'm just so grateful that we can together open up our minds, our hearts, give them to the Lord, and open up his word to better know him and better enjoy him. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Now, I want to just let you know that each week for the next 4 weeks, some of you are used to this, others of you are new. I will be rolling out some videos for you. There are 4 daily videos that correlate with the 4 lessons for the week. And these are videos, I try to keep them right around 10 minutes. These are videos where I come to my desk, I sit down, I open up the word, I think about it, I ponder it, I meditate on it with the Lord, and then I turn on my iPad here and unpack it with you. So these are just my thoughts right off the bat for that day. I always wish that you were sitting right here so we could have a conversation about it. I always would love to know, are you seeing the same thing? Is this helpful? What do you think? Am I on the right track? Those kinds of questions. So this is maybe not the same as you actually sitting here. I hope it's the next best thing. I really just want to be your study buddy and encourage you to keep going in the Word, because friends, this is how we know and enjoy God. It truly is. We're so blessed to have his word. All right, so those daily teaching videos will come out 4 days a week, and then the last video that comes out on Friday, you have the whole weekend to watch it, is a teaching video where I might go ahead and access some commentaries. I try to look at those 4 days as a whole, and I'll unpack some theme, or I'll unpack something for a teaching kind of a moment, and those are longer. Listen, the videos are not imperative for doing the study. What is imperative is that you open up God's word and you seek him and say, Lord, I just want to open up my heart and my mind. I want to know you. And that is a prayer that resonates with his heart, and his spirit will help us and show us that his word is applicable. These stories that took place thousands of years ago, the spiritual lessons are applicable for us today, for sure. So anyway, all that to say, the videos are not necessary for doing successful Bible study. A couple of things that I want to encourage you that I do feel it is necessary is consistent time of opening up the word. Like, if you can find time daily, or at least 5 days a week, to open up the word, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes. And friends, if you are short on time, it's okay. Just make one observation, ask one question, ask, what does this tell me about who God is? Or what is the spiritual lesson here for today? Just make some kind of an observation, understand the meaning of that, and then apply it. Apply that spiritual lesson for the day. Take a truth to ponder and chew on for the rest of the day. I hope to talk about that a little bit more. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to ask. And then secondly, friends, we are never meant to study on our own. This is partly why I put the videos out, just to be like your study buddy. I don't know. I think of Mr. Rogers. He was so kind on the other side of the screen to meet the needs of children. And that's all I want to do. I just want to meet whatever it is your need is. I hope this helps to meet meet it in some way by just being your study buddy. But the best way is to be a part of a small group. So I want to encourage you, please invite a friend, invite a sister, invite a mother or a daughter to do this study with you. It's only 4 weeks. And, do the study, watch the videos, and then get together and have coffee and talk about it for an hour. What did you see? What did you notice? What did you learn? How are you applying it today? Oh, friends, I promise that allows His word to sink deep. We are meant to connect with Jesus and to connect with one another as we study His word together. And then finally, friends, I just want to encourage you, if you are a leader of women or you're interested in leading a small group, I want to invite you to be a part of what I call Leaders Live on Monday evenings at 7 Eastern Standard Time. It's just an hour. It's a safe place for leaders to do Bible study and just feel prepared for leading their group for the discussion of Ruth that will happen that following week, or for some, depending on whether you're meeting in a church or at somebody's home, it may be a couple weeks later, but would love to connect you with other leaders and support and encourage you in that way. So again, friends, I want to thank you. I want to welcome you to this study. I really look forward to being to this journey that we are going to be on. And it is my hope and prayer that this will strengthen us, turn us into strong women, like spiritually strong women who are rooted and grounded in the Lord. Like we will have a clear understanding of God's steadfast love and His faithfulness and His grace, and that He is the one behind the scenes upholding us in the midst of our trials and in the midst of tragedy and in the midst of the broken worlds that we live in. Oh, friends, I look forward to this journey. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for being a part.